Yeah, guys, you could do better, I guess. Hi. That's lovely indeed. Appreciate being very responsive. For someone who's often known as making a lot of noise pollution around the city, I'm speechless. Thank you for inviting me and honoring me. I feel very humbled. Mr. Thomas Olsen, today's chief guest, Dr. Papaya Banerjee, the director in charge, good friends on the dais, Mr. Sanjay Bukharia, Jagdish Kini, and very dear Pallab. I'm privileged to be here this morning, ladies and gentlemen. As I just mentioned, I'm very emotional today, even more emotional than ever before, for this August Institute has considered my contribution worthy of felicitation today. With all humility and gratitude, I just want to submit, and I'm very acutely aware that I have a long way to go. I'm still a student of HR. I'm still a student of people, understanding people, and being around with them. HR has never been something that I pursued or continue to pursue for a living. It of course does, but I think it's much more a passion for me than anything else. At this point in time, I just want to thank both the Institute, Dr. Papaya, as well as a good friend and one of the most celebrated role models for young managers, Mr. Jagdish Kini, for really saying so many nice things about me that makes me even more responsible and committed to what I am doing. As I mentioned, I'll just take a couple of minutes to share some very quick perspectives on this very important occasion personally for me. I think a couple of things that I call them as simple rules. I don't want to call them habits. I don't want to call them as anything else, that have kind of guided me in my last 30 years of my journey into HR. There's not one day that I regretted choosing HR to be my passion and my profession. And I have no reason to regret going forward as well, because the next couple of decades is going to be for HR. The rest of the guys pursuing marketing, sales, operations, whatever, please take note of your HR friends. You will follow them. They will be the leaders of tomorrow. So I have no reason to regret picking up HR as my passion and profession. The rule that, in fact, Mr. Kinney talked about most of them, describing me and what kind of a person I am. Pretty simple, pretty easy to deal with, always willing to learn. My number one rule has been practice what you preach. I often ask HR professionals to be a bit paranoid about what they are, who they are, because sometimes success gets into the head. You become very inaccessible. You're so full of yourself. And I've seen this increasingly a trend within the HR profession. But I guess that's not going to help the professional or the profession either. So the first rule that I learned way back, even as I was growing as a budding HR professional, I am. And I, for one, do not believe I have arrived, or may never arrive. Be a bit paranoid, but don't ever live a schizophrenic life. I think that's dangerous. I remember a good friend of mine, Dr. R.R. Noyer, Mr. R.R. Noyer, dear friend of many of us on the dais, Pallab, and I know him for many years. A great role model, as many of us started to build our career as HR professionals. We used to look up to him as a role model, as a guru. He once said, higher the monkey climbs up, more of its back is visible to others. Very powerful words of wisdom. I think the higher we go, I think more and more people are watching where we are, what we are, who we are. I think it's absolutely important not to lead a schizophrenic life is the first principle. So you just are what you are. The second significant learning for me, and the rule that I kind of got, guided myself with, is that as you go higher and higher, particularly with the management graduates, there is this mistaken notion that you start working smarter and stop working harder. I think that's nothing can be further from truth. Again, another very simple rule. That yeah, of course you start becoming, behaving and working smarter, but you do not stop working harder. And this is my 30th year of professional entry, and I must tell you that while I am being present in many forums, I teach extensively, but I still work for a good 14, 15, 16 hours a day, either in office or at home or wherever I am. I think working smarter does not replace working harder. I think that's a very simple rule that I want you to bear in mind, and that's what I remember all the time. The third important rule that I have kind of governed myself is learning to respect. Learning to respect your time, learning to respect the time of others, which is even more important, learning to respect the job and the work, learning to respect your colleagues, learning to respect your professional contacts, and even the most importantly, learning to respect our parents, without whom we just wouldn't have gotten where we are today. My message to youngsters is that you don't have to go to gym. You don't have to do any exercise. Just fall on the feet of your parents once every day. Prostrate before them. That is the only exercise we all need. We couldn't have gotten to where we are today without the hard work, without our parents never slept with the hope that we will have a peaceful night. Our parents really worked very hard at helping us where we are today. I think learning to respect our parents and our time and our colleagues and our work, I think that's very, very, very critical. I'm not going to be haranguing for too long, but I just want to talk about two more simple rules that govern me. Invest in your learning every day. That's very, very critical. I think the illiterate of the future is not someone who cannot read or write, but who has stopped learning or who hasn't learned to learn. And I think that is one principle that I have just constantly and consistently kept as something which is very governing. I try and learn every day, something or other. I try and learn from everybody that I run into. I learn a lot from my juniors. The complaints that I have in my organization is that management trainees and students from B schools get a lot of your time and we don't. And I tell them, the senior you are, you probably don't need much of my time, but I have a burning need to learn. And I learn only from students, from youngsters. Mark Twain beautifully said, I'm not young enough to learn everything. So one has to really go around. Finally, I think for particularly those HR professionals, one of the things that I want to leave with you, and I even wrote a very powerful 5-page article in the latest issue of National HRD Journal, HRD Network Journal, is CEOs are from Mars, HR folks are from Venus. Where on earth are they going to meet and partner? Very long title, very interesting. This was based on a half-a-day workshop I ran for 1,000 HR professionals in the NASSCOM HR Summit last year. That is a rule that I follow, that in my organization and in my life, I do not pursue a HR agenda. The only agenda I have is a business agenda, the CEO's agenda, period. And many of us make the mistake of writing a HR agenda and then start pursuing it. And no surprise that the CEO is not impressed. It doesn't really matter whether you're a finance, HR, marketing, sales. You have just a business agenda. You have just one customer. That customer out there who's cutting your paycheck month after month. So pursue the CEO agenda, pursue the business agenda, scrap an HR agenda if you ever had one. That is all. I think those are 5 governing principles that I consistently follow. Lead a simple life. Don't be schizophrenic while being a little paranoid. Learning to work harder even as you learn to become smarter. Respect everyone around you and your time and a whole lot of things. Invest your learning every day. Embrace the business agenda. Do not have a functional agenda. Well, I can go on and on. As Mr. Kinney said, I love talking, I like my voice. But knowing the occasion today, I stop here. I'm very humbled. I appreciate the Institute, appreciate Mr. Kinney, appreciate all of you for being here and for the recognition that's conferred on me. It reminds me that I have a long way to go and I have a lot more to contribute. Thank you very much.